The stars drifted slowly through the vast silence of space, cold and uncaring, when the Zorthan scout ship Lucid Whisper picked up something unusual. An old, battered probe floating just beyond the edge of the Milky Way, its metal body scarred and covered in alien scripts no one could fully understand. The crew, a mix of explorers and scientists, brought it aboard with caution, unsure whether it was dangerous or valuable, and once powered, the probe sputtered to life with a flicker and a faint pulse, then began transmitting a message in dozens of galactic dialects, some ancient and long dead, others barely recognized, yet every version said the same thing in slightly different words. Do not approach Earth. It is not what it seems. It is a trap. The message repeated twice. Then the probe shut down for good, its memory banks completely drained, leaving only static and a strange hum in the air, as if even in death it still whispered a warning. Admiral Tilan, commander of the Zorthan, High Fleet and a creature of strict logic and pride, stood tall in the command center as the message played again on the screen, his violet eyes narrowing with irritation rather than concern, dismissing the contents as paranoid rambling from primitive civilizations unable to deal with a planet beyond their understanding. And he quickly ordered preparations to move forward into the Sol system, where Earth waited like an untouched jewel, its energy fields rich and raw, perfect for the Empire's expansion plans. Yet one officer among them, a young and quiet linguist named Karel, felt uneasy as he studied the message more closely, not just for what it said, but for how it said it. The fear wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, almost mournful, as if whoever recorded it had already accepted their own end and was begging others not to follow. Karel traced some of the messages to lost species, races that had gone dark long ago, their homeworlds empty or destroyed, and a strange pattern began to emerge, a line of vanished civilizations that had all passed near Earth before they disappeared completely. He brought this to his superiors only to be told it was coincidence, a myth created by overthinking data, and he was advised to focus on his assigned duties, not fairy tales. Still, something about Earth felt wrong, too quiet, too open. No planetary defense grid, no orbital structures, only scattered satellites broadcasting ancient Earth music, weather updates and strange human programs filled with laughter and loud colors, the kind of distraction no serious race should waste time on. The more Karel listened, the more confused he became. Was this planet simply backwards and unaware of the stars, or were they pretending to be? And if so, why? The fleet moved ahead anyway, warping into Sol with ceremony and pride, their sleek ships casting shadows over the blue-green planet below, and as they formed orbit, all scans confirmed what they had expected. Earth was open, vulnerable, practically inviting occupation. Admiral Tilan gave a confident speech to the fleet, calling this moment the beginning of a new chapter in Zorthan history. But even as the words echoed across the command decks, Karel couldn't shake the heavy feeling pressing on his chest, like a weight that only grew heavier as the first wave of exploration drones descended into Earth's atmosphere and disappeared. There were no explosions, no warnings, no signs of interference. They simply vanished from the fleet's sensors as if swallowed by nothing. Tilan ordered more, then more, but the result was the same. Gone, without a trace. Confusion turned to irritation, then to silence as the entire fleet waited, watching Earth below, still calm, still peaceful, still smiling. For then, without warning, the planet lit up in the darkness, not from weapons fire but from its cities, lights blinking, in patterns and colors, like a greeting from a people who had always known this moment would come. A global message broadcast into orbit in a dozen Earth languages, clear and friendly. Welcome, visitors. Please land at your convenience. Refreshments provided. Some of the bridge crew laughed, assuming it was a joke or mistranslation, But Carell wasn't laughing. He saw the timing, the precision, the way every word seemed perfectly placed to appear harmless, and yet not one part of it felt right. No fear, no hesitation, only calm, practiced invitation. He watched Earth below as clouds moved lazily across the oceans, birds flew across great forests, and city lights shimmered like stars reflected on water, and he realized with a chill that ran down his spine. They had been expected. Someone, somewhere on that planet, had always known they would come, and the invitation wasn't kindness. It was control. Talarn prepared to send the first landing teams, determined to make peaceful contact or, if needed, to assert dominance. But Carell now wondered if the real trap wasn't in weapons or shields, but in Earth's silence, in its strange culture, in the way it made empires feel curious rather than cautious. And as the first shuttle descended toward a stretch of land called Nebraska, Carell stared out the viewport, heart pounding, unsure if he had just witnessed the beginning of contact or the beginning of their undoing. The sky over Earth was clear and endless as the Zorthan fleet hovered above, their massive ships casting long shadows across the clouds, dark like a silent storm waiting to fall. The fleet had never looked more impressive. Smooth silver hulls gleaming under the sunlight, engines humming with quiet power, each warship loaded with technology far beyond Earth's own. Admiral Talarn stood tall in the command deck of the lead cruiser Void's Spear, his long robe flowing gently with the artificial breeze, eyes fixed on the planet below. Earth looked beautiful, almost too perfect from space. Blue oceans swirled around green continents, snow-capped mountains gleamed like white scars, and glowing cities pulsed like veins of light in the night. Talarn saw no threat, no defenses, and no sign of resistance, only a quiet planet that appeared asleep, unaware of what watched from above. But Carell, the young linguist stationed at the rear of the command bridge, couldn't shake the heavy feeling inside his chest. Something was wrong. He watched the data feed from the drones that had been sent hours earlier. Each signal had vanished without warning. No crash, no sign of attack, just silence. He had run every test he knew, searched for interference or sabotage, but there was nothing, just an eerie void where the drones should have been. Yet Talarn waved away his concern, confident that Earth's silence was proof of weakness, not strategy. To him, the probe's warning was still nonsense, the fears of lesser species who couldn't handle a world unlike their own. But Carell kept thinking about those warnings. They weren't angry or panicked. They were calm, tired, and full of regret. That was what frightened him most. He returned his eyes to Earth as a new alert blinked on the screen. A message from the surface, broadcast openly across all channels, written in perfect galactic standard. "Welcome to Earth. We come in peace. Please land at your convenience." Talarn laughed. "They speak our tongue," he said with a smirk. "How quaint." But Carell stared at the message, realizing it wasn't translated. It was original. Someone on Earth spoke galactic standard fluently, which was nearly impossible. No species had ever learned the Empire's language without direct contact, and yet here it was, written clearly with grammar, even better than some Zorthan scribes. A chill ran down Carell's spine. He leaned forward and replayed the message. No static, no accent. Just clean, crisp speech like someone had been practicing for years. Still, the Admiral refused to pause. He ordered the first diplomatic shuttle to descend, choosing a location in the center of a large flatland the humans called Nebraska. The surface scans showed no military presence, no weapons, and no structures besides small settlements. It was the safest choice, they said. The shuttle detached from the cruiser, slowly drifting down through the atmosphere, glowing slightly from re-entry. Inside the shuttle were 5 chosen representatives, 2 diplomats, 1 cultural analyst, a security officer, and a translator. And they had been given strict orders: be calm, be firm, and report back immediately. Everyone on the bridge watched. The descent in silence. Carell leaned forward, holding his breath as the shuttle passed through the clouds and sent back images of blue skies, green fields, and narrow roads stretching across endless farmland. Then finally, the shuttle landed gently on a clear plain. But what they saw next made everyone fall silent. A crowd of humans had already gathered around the landing site, standing just outside the security perimeter, holding signs written in both human language and galactic standard. They weren't angry, they weren't scared. They were smiling. The signs read, "Welcome aliens. We've been waiting. Try our coffee." The humans were calm, cheerful, even offering food and drinks to the stunned Zorthan team. The translator aboard the shuttle confirmed it all. The humans weren't joking or confused. They were genuinely excited. Someone even handed a box of something called donuts through the hatch. The crew on the bridge watched in disbelief as their proud diplomats accepted the offerings with caution, then curiosity. The humans asked questions, made jokes, and even posed for photos. Carell looked around the command deck, expecting someone to react with suspicion, but many officers were smiling, even laughing. Talan simply nodded. "They are peaceful. This will be easier than we thought." But Carell didn't smile. He kept staring at the humans, noting how none of them seemed surprised, not one person out of place. They had come prepared, not for war, but for company, like they had seen this before. He checked the time. The humans had assembled within minutes of the shuttle's descent. That wasn't coincidence, that was planning. He asked the ship's AI to run a comparison of their arrival path against Earth's communication history. The results stunned him. Earth had tracked their fleet long before they entered orbit. Earth's satellites had shifted slightly as the fleet approached, small moves unnoticed until now. Their broadcasts changed frequency just before the Zorthan arrival. They knew. Somehow, Earth knew everything. And yet they chose to act surprised, like it was a show, like they were playing a part. Carell's eyes widened as he whispered, "They've been watching us." He stood and approached the Admiral, voice low but urgent. "Sir, Earth isn't primitive. They're pretending. This greeting, this friendliness, it's a mask. They've had time to study us." But Talan waved a hand and said, "Paranoia. Let them enjoy their illusions of control. We are the Empire." Yet deep down, even he had begun to feel it. The faint sense that something had shifted, something they hadn't prepared for. And still, Earth remained quiet, peaceful, friendly. Too friendly. Carell returned to his station and stared at the planet below. The cities blinked like stars, each one sending out signals layered in sound, light, and code. Music played across the airwaves, soft, complex, and strangely beautiful. But hidden under that music was something else, a rhythm, a pattern, not language, not data, but a message. He enhanced the signal and listened. It repeated once every minute in a tone only certain ears could hear. "We see you." Carell's heart pounded. He realized the real danger wasn't Earth's weapons, because there were none. The danger was that Earth didn't need any. They had something more powerful, something that could break armies without firing a shot. And as the first shuttle crew waved from the surface, happily sharing tea with the smiling humans, Carell knew the trap had already been sprung. Not with force, but with kindness. Not with violence, but with welcome. Earth was not asleep. Earth was not unaware. Earth had waited. And now the galaxy had come knocking. The humans called it hospitality protocol, and at first it seemed like nothing more than simple kindness, the kind of thing lesser species did to make visitors feel welcome. But as the Zorthan delegation moved deeper into Earth's lands, they quickly realized it was far more than manners or peace offerings. The shuttle team had been transported by human vehicles, large wheeled machines called buses that hummed gently as they glided over smooth roads toward a large structure the humans called Welcome Center. And though the building appeared Ordinary, with glass windows and clean floors, everything inside was perfectly prepared. The temperature matched Zorthan climate preferences exactly. The seating was designed to fit the length of Zorthan limbs, and even the refreshments offered came in sealed packs labeled in both Zorthan Standard and Galactic Trade Script. The humans smiled the whole time, their voices soft and polite. But Karel, who had insisted on joining the second shuttle after, his findings were ignored. Noticed too many small details that didn't add up, the way the staff didn't ask questions, only gave answers, how they already knew the full names, ranks, and special dietary needs of each visitor, how not one computer, screen, or scanner inside the facility used human language, they all displayed Zorthan code. "It's for your comfort," one of the human hosts said sweetly when asked. "We want you to feel at home." But Karel didn't feel at home. He felt surrounded. Every hallway led somewhere pleasant, every door opened automatically at just the right moment, and the smiling humans never blinked at anything strange, even when one of the Zorthans accidentally discharged a minor energy pulse from his device. They laughed it off, saying, "No harm done," then offered him dessert. The longer they stayed, the more everything felt staged, like a carefully written play where the guests had the lead. Roles but never the script. Admiral Tilan, still proud and unmoved, enjoyed the attention, giving long speeches about the Empire's strength and future plans, while the humans clapped politely and asked for more stories, taking notes and nodding as if they were students, learning from a wise old teacher. But Karel watched from the side, eyes sharp, mind racing. Every time someone from the delegation mentioned something classified or sensitive, the lights in the room would shift slightly, just a flicker, not enough for most to notice, and a faint pulse could be felt in the air, like the hum of a hidden machine responding. Karel began testing the theory. He spoke a random Zorthan code phrase while standing near a decorative plant, and the nearby wall screen instantly shifted to display a map of the fleet's current orbit. He said nothing, only stared at the humans who continued to smile, pretending not to see it. That night, when the Zorthans were led to private rooms, spacious, elegant, and eerily perfect in their familiarity, Karel explored his assigned suite, touching every surface, testing every button, and finally discovered a small panel near the floor, covered by a rug. Inside was a device. It wasn't human, and it wasn't Zorthan. It was something older, hidden in plain sight, pulsing softly with a strange energy signature he couldn't trace. He tried to scan it, but his tool shut down immediately, as if the device had defended itself. He didn't report it. Not yet. Instead, he wandered the halls at night, moving quietly, looking for patterns, and that's when he saw them, the Watchers. Not the smiling human staff, but others, hidden behind mirrored walls, watching through invisible windows. Their shapes were unclear, shadows behind glass, but Karel saw their eyes glowing faintly in the dark, unblinking. They didn't move, they didn't speak, but they were there. He ran a silent test, sending out a coded distress signal from his communicator to the orbiting fleet, but no reply came. The line was open, the signal was strong, yet silence returned, as if space itself refused to listen. The next morning, Tilan arrived, escorted by more humans, laughing about Earth's strange food and their obsession with something called television. Karel tried to warn him in private, but Tilan dismissed it again, saying, "This world is a gift. Stop looking for ghosts." But Karel was certain now. Earth was not what it seemed. Its people were not surprised, not curious, not confused. They were actors, repeating a role written long ago, and every moment the Zorthans spent on the surface was feeding something unseen. That night, Karel snuck outside. The skies were clear, and stars sparkled above like eyes in the void. But No ships were visible. The fleet was gone. No message, no orbit trail, no evidence they had ever been there. He ran back to the welcome center, heart pounding, and confronted the humans who only smiled wider. "Oh, don't worry," they said. "They're still around. They've just been relocated. You'll join them soon." Carell stepped back, alarm rising. He activated his emergency beacon, a device no world could block, except Earth did. Nothing happened. No alarm, no signal, just silence. He looked around at the humans, now standing perfectly still, their faces calm, too calm. And he saw it, just for a moment. Their skin shimmered slightly, like a mask losing shape. And underneath was something else, not human, not even close. One of them leaned forward and said softly, "You were warned." And Carell finally understood. Earth was not a trap made of weapons or war. It was a stage, a performance, a net hidden beneath smiles and songs. The hospitality protocol wasn't kindness, it was control. A system so perfect that its victims didn't even realize they were caught until it was too late. Carell turned to run, but the doors closed behind him, sealing with a quiet hiss. The lights dimmed. Music played softly from the walls, and from every speaker came the same calm voice in galactic standard. "Please relax. Your stay has just begun." Carell sat in silence, trapped in a room that felt more like a pleasant cage than a prison, surrounded by soft lights, clean walls, and the ever-present voice that repeated calming messages in perfect Zorthan standard. "You are safe," it said. "Please enjoy your stay." But safety was the last thing Carell felt. Days had passed. He could no longer count them clearly, as the artificial sunlight never changed, and still no word from Admiral Talan, or the fleet above. He was alone now, or so it seemed, and the humans had stopped pretending. They no longer offered meals or asked polite questions. They simply watched from behind mirrors and screens, their blank faces hiding something far older and far more dangerous than anything the Zorthans had prepared for. Carell tested everything, the doors, the walls, even the air vents, but every escape attempt was countered with silent efficiency. The room adjusted to his actions, rearranging itself subtly, always remaining one step ahead. He realized then that the entire building was alive, not organic but aware, learning his behavior with every move he made. He wasn't just trapped physically, he was being studied. Yet still no harm came to him, no threats were made. Instead, the walls played soothing music, the lights dimmed gently at night, and the soft voice continued to say things like, "You are valued, and this world welcomes you." That was the weapon he now understood. Earth didn't conquer with fire or steel, it conquered with comfort. It made you forget the danger. It wrapped you in peace so tightly that you stopped fighting, stopped asking questions. The real conquest wasn't of land or systems, it was of the mind, and Carell wasn't the only one. One evening the door opened without warning, and he was escorted into a new chamber, a wide room with curved walls and a clear ceiling showing the stars above. Inside were members of the original shuttle team, sitting in soft chairs, sipping drinks, and laughing like guests at a peaceful resort. Carell ran to them, asking what had happened, but they only smiled and said, "It's wonderful here, they understand us, you should rest." Their eyes were calm, too calm, and their speech had changed. Zorthan words mixed with Earth phrases in a strange rhythm, as if their thoughts had blended with something else. He tried to shake them, tried to break the illusion, but one of the diplomats just patted his arm and said, "Don't fight it. It's better this way." The realization hit Carell like a stone. Earth wasn't destroying the Empire's people, it was absorbing them. The hospitality protocol wasn't about comfort, it was about transformation. Piece by piece, the guests were being changed, not with machines or implants, but with patience, suggestion, and something hidden in the lights, the food, even the music. It rewrote them gently, making them forget who they were. The conquest was not loud. It didn't leave scars. It whispered into the soul, turning soldiers into citizens, diplomats into dreamers, and warriors into worshippers of peace. But Carroll still resisted. He forced himself to stay awake when the soft music played. He refused the meals, drinking only from his emergency supply until it ran dry. He repeated his own name, rank, and mission every hour to keep his mind sharp. And he began to plan. He watched the watchers. He studied the shadows that flickered behind the mirrors, the way they moved and paused whenever he tried something new. They were not all-knowing. They were learning, too. And like any system that learns, it could be confused. He began acting, erratically, speaking in ancient dialects, pacing in odd rhythms, drawing false symbols on the walls, and he saw it work. The lights flickered more. The voice stuttered slightly. The watchers moved more often. He was breaking their pattern. Then one night, as he feigned sleep, the room dimmed and a hatch opened silently beneath the bed. He slid into the tunnel and crawled forward, heart pounding, unsure if it was escape or trap. But he had no choice. The tunnel led downward, through a long spiral path lit by pale blue lights, and eventually opened into a dark chamber filled with machines, tall, silent towers pulsing with energy. He recognized some of them. They were Zorthan, others were Imperial, some were from species long extinct. All of them were active. Carrel moved between the machines and saw cables connecting them, data streams flowing together into a central pillar that glowed with a soft, steady heartbeat. At the base was a console, Earth-made but using Zorthan interface code. Someone had built this place using stolen tech, blending the tools of 100 civilizations into one great network. He touched the console, and the voice returned, no, longer soft or welcoming, but deep and cold. "You were not meant to come here," Carrel whispered. "What is this?" And the voice replied, "Continuity, unity, peace." It explained without emotion that Earth had chosen another path centuries ago. It had stopped wars, not by winning them, but by removing the reason for them. It offered every visitor the same deal. Give up your old self and become part of something better. No pain, no death, just peace. But that peace came at a cost. Identity, memory, freedom. Carrel screamed, "You're stealing lives," and the voice answered calmly, "We are saving them from themselves." He tried to disable the console, pulling wires and smashing panels, but the machines only shifted, repairing themselves. Then he saw it, a small relay near the back, blinking out of sync. A flaw, a weak point. He ran to it and jammed his interface spike into the port, sending a burst of raw code from his own mind. The room shuddered. The lights dimmed. The voice cracked. And for the first time, Carrel heard silence. He collapsed beside the relay, unsure if he had won or triggered something worse. The walls around him began to open, showing long corridors leading outward, as if the entire facility had been unlocked. And then he saw the stars. Real stars, not projections. He had found a way out. But as he stood, staggering forward, he saw others coming too, Zorthans from the delegation walking slowly, blinking as if waking from a long dream. Carrel reached for them, calling their names, and some responded, eyes clearing. Others stayed silent, still lost. He led them out anyway, guiding them through the tunnels toward the surface. Above, the night sky stretched wide, and distant in orbit lights flickered, Zorthan ships returning, perhaps drawn by his signal. Carrel didn't know what would come next, but he knew one thing. Earth had not failed to conquer the Empire, it had almost succeeded. But the conquest wasn't finished yet, and somewhere deep below, the voice still whispered, "You will return. They always return." Carrel stood beneath the cold sky, the stars watching from above like silent judges, and behind him, the soft wind carried the distant hum of the Earth facility now broken open, its secrets exposed to the night, but not yet destroyed. Around him moved the rescued Zorthans, some alert and shaken, others dazed and quiet, their minds still fogged by Earth's strange influence. They had escaped the welcome center, yes, but the planet itself was still holding them tightly, and Karel felt it in his bones. Earth wasn't finished with them yet. The Zorthan fleet had returned to orbit, their lights flickering like hope reborn, but there was no communication. The comms remained dead, as if space itself had turned into a mirror, reflecting nothing back. Karel led the group toward the signal point, a high ridge known from his earlier scans to be a natural amplifier, hoping the elevation would allow his emergency beacon to punch through the invisible cage surrounding the planet. They marched through the wilderness, though calling it that felt wrong, because the trees stood too evenly, the air smelled too clean, and even the animals they glimpsed moved in smooth, precise patterns, as though they were not truly wild, but placed there for effect. Everything on Earth was too perfect. That was the conundrum. It all looked real, felt real, even reacted like a living world. But it didn't behave like one. Karel had seen hundreds of planets during his career, and none obeyed such balance, such quiet, such unnatural peace. As they climbed the ridge, the group began to whisper to each other. Small memories returned, a song, a name, a moment before arrival, and Karel encouraged it. Memory was resistance. Memory was identity. At the top of the ridge, Karel activated the last of his personal tech, a signal booster shielded in rare metals, and for a moment, it worked. A burst of static filled the air, followed by a voice, broken but real. "This is the Zorthan ship Valor. Karel, do you read? We see your location but cannot penetrate atmospheric lock." Karel shouted into the wind, "Do not descend! Earth is not what it seems." But then the signal cut again, the static fading into a dull hum. Around them, the air grew still, too still. The leaves on the trees stopped rustling, the clouds above froze mid-drift, and from the shadows of the woods, the watchers emerged. Not the smiling humans from before, but tall, pale figures, their forms too smooth, their faces blank except for two glowing eyes. They moved without sound, surrounding the ridge without haste, like they had done this countless times before. Karel raised his hand, motioning the Zorthans to stay behind him, and he faced the nearest figure. "What is Earth?" he demanded. The figure tilted its head, voice soft and cold. "You are not ready for that answer." Karel growled, "We were warned. We came anyway. Now tell me what this planet really is." The figure stepped closer. "Earth is not a planet. Earth is a process. You came seeking weakness, but found transformation. You call it a trap. We call it a cure." The words chilled Karel deeper than any threat could. A cure? For what? For war? For chaos? For freedom? He refused to believe it. "You manipulate minds. You rewrite thoughts. That is not peace. That is control." The figure paused, then replied, "Your species destroys itself in cycles. We offer an end to the cycle. You resist because you fear stillness." Karel felt something press against his thoughts. Not a voice, but a suggestion, like warmth creeping into cold water. He fought it off, focusing on his earliest memory, a song his mother used to hum in their language. The pressure faded. He turned to his team. "Sing," he said. "Anything. Speak. Remember who you are." The Zorthans, confused but trusting, began to murmur names, phrases, old stories. The sound rose like a low chant. The figures halted, unsure. For a moment, the strange stillness cracked. The trees moved again. The clouds shifted. Karel knew they had found a weakness. The process could be resisted through identity, through voice, memory, language. He yelled, "You fear truth, you fear difference." But the lead figure replied, "No, we fear nothing. We offer what you cannot find on your own, harmony. You mistake freedom for value." Karel stepped forward. "Then let us leave. Let us choose." The figure was silent. Then it said, "You may go, but you will return." They all do. It raised a hand, and the watchers vanished into mist, dissolving like fog under sun. The trees rustled again. The birds flew. Reality resumed its shape. Kyrell activated his beacon once more, and this time the Valor responded fully. "Kyrell, we have you. Atmospheric lock breaking, extraction in progress." Within minutes, a shuttle descended, its metal skin like a promise from the stars. As it landed, Kyrell turned to the others. "This is not over. We have seen something vast, quiet, powerful. Earth is not an enemy. It is a question. And we do not yet have the answer." One by one, the Zorthans boarded the shuttle. Kyrell was last. As he stepped inside and looked back, he saw Earth below, still blue, still calm, still beautiful. But now he saw it not as a world, but as a mask worn by something deeper, something ancient. He whispered to himself, "What are you?" And the wind, just for a moment, whispered back, "Waiting." Kyrell stood inside the observation chamber of the Zorthan research vessel Vigilance, far from Earth now, but not far enough to forget, staring at the blue sphere on the screen with a strange weight in his chest, not fear, not anger, but something heavier, uncertainty. Weeks had passed since the rescue, and the memory of Earth's silence, its strange peace, its watchers and illusions, still clung to every rescued mind. The High Council had ordered quarantine, and Earth was now surrounded by warning buoys pulsing. With crimson light, a message in 100 languages, "Do not approach." But the Empire's leaders, hungry for understanding, had not listened in full. They wanted to study Earth, contain it, maybe even control it if they could. They believed knowledge would protect them. Kyrell, now called before the scientific tribunal daily, told them everything he knew. How Earth didn't attack but invited, how it didn't kill but changed, how it waited with patience that didn't feel human. He warned them, again and again, that Earth was not passive. It was doing something to all who visited, and that something couldn't be undone. The tribunal smiled politely. They thanked him, but Kyrell saw it in their eyes. They didn't believe the danger because Earth hadn't shown its teeth. It hadn't burned cities or destroyed fleets. It had only offered peace. And for minds shaped by war and conquest, peace didn't feel like a threat. It felt like weakness, yet Kyrell knew better. The ones who had stayed longer on Earth still weren't the same. They spoke slower. They avoided conflict. They preferred silence. They didn't dream the same dreams. They hadn't forgotten who they were, but they had forgotten why it mattered. That was the weapon. Slowly, without force, Earth dissolved the will to resist. On the ship, scientists began analyzing Kyrell's reports, running simulations, testing psychological patterns of the crew exposed to Earth's atmosphere. Most showed no signs of infection, but infection wasn't the right word. It wasn't a virus or a program. It was a suggestion, buried in the environment, in the rhythm of sound, in the calm that crawled under the skin. One technician, only briefly exposed, began humming Earth music without realizing it. Another refused to sleep in artificial lighting, claiming it felt wrong. One officer even requested transfer to a research vessel orbiting Earth, stating he missed the quiet. Kyrell confronted him, desperate. "It's changing you. You know that." The officer only smiled. "Maybe we need changing." Kyrell stepped back, shaken. The Empire's pride was built on strength and memory, on ambition, but Earth didn't care about pride. It didn't challenge you to a fight. It made you forget why you were fighting in the first place. That night, Kyrell accessed restricted files, logs from old probes, classified expeditions, fragments from failed missions that vanished without cause. He found something that chilled him. Earth had been visited before by others. Silent. Records from species now extinct. fragments of messages that always ended the same way. They are watching, they are listening, they are waiting. One log, deeply encrypted, described a lost civilization called the Verakai, who came seeking conquest and instead left behind no history, only a monument orbiting a forgotten moon, with one word etched into stone: peace. Carell realized Earth wasn't just affecting the Zorthans. It had done this before, over centuries, over millennia. It was old, older than any of them guessed, maybe even older than memory itself, and it never chased anyone. It only waited. As the ship orbited Earth, Carell noticed something new. The planet wasn't responding. No defenses, no signals, no watchers, only clouds drifting peacefully over continents. But then one sensor showed movement deep below the crust. Not tectonic, but artificial. Patterns too exact for nature. Earth was alive in ways they didn't understand, and it was listening. Carell begged the tribunal to stop the observation. "You're feeding it," he said. "Every scan, every question it learns. It watches through us." They laughed. "You sound like a child frightened by shadows." But he saw it again that night. A message on his private console, words he hadn't typed, blinking softly. "You came again. Why?" He froze. No one admitted sending it. The console had no trace. He replied, "To warn them." Hours passed. Then the reply came, "Curiosity is the first step to surrender." Carell disconnected the terminal and shut himself in his quarters, heart racing. Earth had reached through their systems. It didn't need to chase them. It was already here. Somehow through their minds, through their machines. It didn't need war, it only needed time. Later, while walking the halls, Carell overheard two crew members discussing a return mission. "Just for study," they said. "No contact. Just one more look." And he knew it was too late. Earth had planted something in them. A need to return. A need to understand. And that need was the key. Not fear, not greed, curiosity. It drew them back, one by one, like gravity. Carell returned to the observation deck and stared again at the blue world below. So calm, so perfect. It didn't shout, it didn't threaten, but in its silence was the deepest warning. Not a weapon, not a trap, but a mirror. Earth showed them what they could become if they gave up pain, gave up struggle, gave up memory. Was it better? Was it worse? He didn't know, but he knew it wasn't freedom, and he knew it wouldn't stop. Not until every curious soul returned. Not until every traveler forgot what they once were. That was Earth's legacy. Not destruction, but change. Quiet, deep, and final. And so Carell sent one last message to the High Council, not through code or network, but written by hand, sealed in crystal and delivered by drone, far from Earth's influence. It read, "Do not try to defeat Earth, do not try to understand it. Only remember who you are, because once you forget, it never lets you go." And as he watched the shuttle descend again to the surface with its new research team aboard, Carell whispered, "They warned us. We were the ones who didn't listen." The ship drifted silently above the world, and below, Earth waited, still smiling, still silent, still offering peace to all the curious who would come.